Hey all, Vanitas here, and today I'm going to tell you why the coin flip is imbalanced and how it can be fixed easily. Alright, in this video I'm going to explain to you why the current coin flip system is imbalanced, why it will always be imbalanced if nothing changes, and how it can be fixed. And then I'm going to explain, it's a slightly separate point, but I'm going to explain why a bit of carryover added back to the game will be healthy for a game with a fixed coin flip. And the first point is why the coin flip is imbalanced. If you're not convinced that it is yet, there's a great article by my friend Otaku MZ in which he surveyed a number of high-level players and found the difference in their win rates going first versus going second, and it's pretty similar to my experience. I'll link it below. Personally, for me, on Pro Ladder, I win about 70% of my games going second and 50% going first. So it's pretty obvious difference for myself. And I'm going to explain to you why using some cards. So I'm going to explain with two cards that are very popular in a variety of decks right now. The first is Geralt Igni, which I'm sure anyone who's played Gwent for even 2 games has experienced, and the second is Nova, which is one of the most popular cards in the game right now. And once you see this example, you're going to see why these cards are popular and why it's imperative that going second will help you win the game. So first, Nova is what we call a bomb card. It's just a single card you throw down and explodes points on your board. And sometimes they require setup, sometimes they don't. But Nova is one that requires setup in the deck building phase. Like you're giving up a little bit of deck building flexibility in order to have this bomb. The second is Geralt Igni, which is again a control card that can wipe, infinite amount of points from your opponent with the right setup. So in our example, we have 2 players. One obviously has to go first, one goes second. They get to the last round and they both have 2 cards. And they both happen to be Geralt Igni and Nova. If Geralt Igni, the player that goes first, if they play Nova first, it gets Igni'd, then they have to play a dead Igni, and the player who goes second plays their Nova and wins 30-5. If they play Igni first, it's just a dead Igni, and they still have to play their Nova before the second player plays their own Igni. So no matter what happens, it's a 30-point to 25-point victory to whoever's going second. And not every example is this extreme, of course, but it illustrates how every playstyle benefits from having last word in the last round, especially these combo decks with bombs, and decks with control cards like Scorch. But that's the last round, you might say. Coin flip only affects the first round. Well, the first round has the same exact problem and leads to the same situation as the last round. The player who goes second in the first round has 2 distinct advantages that are tied together. The first one, the player going second always knows exactly how many points they need to be ahead of their opponent on even cards. And the second advantage is related. The player going second will never lose on even cards in round 1. So if I'm going second, my opponent makes a huge play, I'm down by 35 points or 40 points. I know I can't make up that 40 points in 2 cards. I can just pass, lose the round, up a card, and there's no reason for me to play into it if I know that I can't make up that point in 2 plays. So going second, you'll never lose the first round on even cards. And to show how important this is, we'll take an example of a game where both players are playing a deck with no carryover. The potential outcomes, I'll refer to the player who goes first in round 1 is blue coin and the player who goes second is red coin. The potential outcomes ranked from best to worst for blue coin are as follows. Oh, and we're also going to call going into round 3 with an extra card, a 1 card advantage, and having the last say as a 0.5 card advantage. It's not actually a card, but as we talked about before, it's more valuable to go last, right? Okay, so here are the examples. The best case scenario for the blue coin is they win round 1, down a card. Because like we said before, red coin will never lose round 1 on even cards. So blue coin wins round 1, down a card, dry passes round 2, and it has 0.5 card advantage going into round 3. That's the best case scenario, 0.5 card advantage. The second best scenario, which is bad, is blue coin loses round 1, up a card. So they make a big play, their opponent makes a play that can't quite overtake them, then they pass in round 1. They get dry passed round 2, and they end up going 0.5 card disadvantage in round 3. So our best case scenario, half a card advantage. Worst case scenario, half a card deficit. The worst case scenario is blue coin loses round 1 on even cards. So let's say both players play all their cards in round 1. Blue coin maybe is down 1 point with 1 card left, makes a big play, and red coin overcomes them. Then red coin dry passes round 2, and blue goes into round 3 down a card and a half. So the best case scenario is up half a card, and worst case scenario is down a card and a half. Not only are 2 of the 3 outcomes bad for blue coin, but there's a chance for blue coin to go down into basically an unrecoverable deficit for almost every deck. And in addition to this, blue coin also has a harder time winning in round 1 in the first place due to the fact that red always knows how many points they need to put pressure on blue. Okay, so now that we've gone over why going second is a huge boon and why the coin flip can never be fixed, what can we do about it? Before I propose the idea to fix the coin flip, here's my criteria for what would constitute an ideal state. That would be players are ambivalent whether they go first or second. And let's take Hearthstone for example. The player that goes second in Hearthstone has a disadvantage, and to make it up, they get an extra card, so more cards to play with. It's a little bit different in Hearthstone, but card advantage. And they also get a chance to play the round 1 turn faster than their opponent. So even though the player who goes first every round, the player who goes second gets to basically skip, get an extra mana, and go first for 1 round. And that gets it pretty close to even. For most decks, you don't care too much whether you go first or second. And the ideal state is that no player ever cares whether they go first or second. So that's my idea of an ideal state. And so I have also already demonstrated that the current system doesn't fulfill that requirement at all. Every single deck prefers going second in Gwent, and it's basically always been that way. There's been a couple exceptions in the history of Gwent, but they were decks that were not good for the game overall. And it's not only me who thinks that the current situation is not good, but CDPR themselves admit it by manipulating the coin flip for tournaments. So their current system isn't good enough for ladder, so they fix it for tournaments. Like fix as in manipulate. Okay, so here's my answer to the coin flip problem. And the answer's not a new one, and it actually took me some time to come around on it. But after careful consideration, I now believe there's only one true fix for the coin flip in the long term, and that is bidding. Before the game, players would bid on how many points they would pay for the opportunity to go second in round 1. The player who bids higher would give their opponent that many points at the start of the game in round 1. This works because, as we just talked about, going first makes it harder to win round 1 and has more potential downside. So in order to balance that out, we give the player who goes first a certain amount of points based on whatever the bidding meta is. So the player who goes first gets some points, and that mitigates some of the risk of losing round 1 on even cards and gives them a better chance to win round 1 at all. Here's an example of a simple UI. And I came up with this because I looked at some Reddit comments and I looked at CDPR's comments on the Coinflip in the past, and there's two main oppositions to fixing the Coinflip. One is fixing the Coinflip in this way. The first one is it doesn't feel right for Gwent. And I'm going to ignore that argument because I care more about balance than feeling. I think an imbalanced game doesn't feel right. So it's hard to imagine that this change would drive away any existing players that weren't driven away by bigger changes like gold immunity or midwinter update. Anyone that stuck through those will stick through this. I am almost certain of it. But I will address the first argument, that it's too complex for the game. And I'll explain a simple solution without bringing up the fact that it's simpler than the mulligan system, easier to understand than the new priority system, or that there are single cards more complex than the bidding system. I won't talk about that at all. So the first step is to introduce starting point value in the tutorial and tutorial matches. Just have a tooltip that says the player that goes first is at a slight disadvantage, so they get some points to compensate for it. Like, people understand in Go, there's Komi that gives the player who goes second some extra points, right? So this is a thing in games to balance who goes first and who goes second. It's not a new system at all. Then, before the player gets to online matches, you introduce the bidding system in one of the tutorial matches. Since you've already played a few tutorial matches, maybe it spots the person who goes first 13 points or something, the player will get a chance to bid and kind of see how the process works against the computer. When a player actually matches in an online match, there can be an entire screen, just like the one I have here, where it shows the bidding system and shows the average winning bid for all matchups and for the specific matchup. So you know about how much you need to bid to win, and as the game evolves and the meta evolves, it will become a stable meta, right? And it won't take any extra effort on the part of CDPR. And it will be really easy just to follow who is... It will be easy to just bid what is on the screen, and you'll be fine if you do that, right? And so there can even be like something you can click that just says auto bid and be done with it. So the bidding meta will work itself out alongside the normal meta, and we'll no longer be in a place where something like 20% of games outcomes are decided by the coin flip rather than by who played better, which is a sad state for the game to be in. So that's the idea. It fulfills the requirement. Players are ambivalent when they go second, and I proposed an implementation plan that would be accessible to newer players. The amount bid for the red coin would balance itself out along with the meta every time new cards are released or a balance patch hits, and would not require any extra balancing by CDPR above what they do now. I hope I've convinced you that this is not only a fair solution, but that the coin flip is fixable and that it should be fixed in this way basically immediately. All right, so if you disagree or have any questions about how this system would work, leave a comment and I'll get back to you and tell you why you're wrong. Okay, so on to the next part of the video, carryover. So if the coin flip is fixed, then I believe that adding back a moderate amount of carryover will be good for the game. Gwent is at its best when both players are not only playing for the current round, but taking into account future rounds with every play. Right now, due to lack of carryover, and the power balance of bronze, silver, and gold cards becoming closer and closer together, almost every deck is built around gaining card advantage or turn advantage to win the game. Carryover can feel oppressive in the current state of the game or in the previous state before the midwinter patch, with the unbalanced coin flip, because red coin can flop down carryover basically every turn in round 1 without penalty, since their low tempo plays can't be punished, because the worst they can do is half a card disadvantage going into round 3. And if they have a lot of carryover, then it doesn't really make a difference, right? So they can just plop down carryover, they can't be auto passed in round 2, no disadvantage at all. However, with my proposed coin flip fix, now blue doesn't need to be so proactive in getting tempo on the board in round 1. They have points already, so they don't need to worry about a low tempo play ruining their round. Like, they won't get dry passed if they play a weather card first, gold weather card first. They can play a low tempo carryover or hand buff, which is just another type of carryover play, and ruin their chance to win the first round. It won't ruin their chance. So if both players are on even footing, which is exactly what happens with a bidding system, the meta will be stabilized, and the existence of carryover doesn't inherently benefit one player over the other or exacerbate those differences. And if card advantage isn't the only way to invest in future rounds, we have strong carryover besides just War Dancer, Olgierd, these really low tempo, low value plays, then the game becomes less about who can draw Spy, Summoning Circle, and Yennefer Enchantress, and it becomes more about who can manage spreading out their points and choosing when to play their engines and when to play their bombs, how to control their opponent, and how to invest in all the rounds at once. And I believe that will be a more strategic, more deep Gwent game, like some of my favorite matchups from past patches. Alright, so there you have it. Those are my thoughts on the coin flip and carryover. I know I won't convince everyone on carryover, but I hope that my argument for fixing the coin flip with a bidding system rung true with you. Maybe in this example here, I'm going to bid 20 because I'm very confident winning. Or maybe I'll bid 5 because I can just dry pass round 1 and I want to play a long round. But that's up to me and Big Dick Guy and whatever we decide to bid in this match. It's not up to the RNG gods that decide the game before it even starts. All right, so let me know what you think. Leave a comment. Check out the Reddit thread. I'm sure there will be lots of great discussion there. And I'll see you guys next time.